Happy Thursday, everybody. Welcome to the Cluster Puck Podcast, part of the MHRT network here at Center Ice. I am Nick. Beside me here soon is Brit. She's just experiencing some technical difficulties. She'll be in just a moment. Before we begin, today's episode, there's been a lot of up and down throughout the last couple of weeks. Looks like Brit's right here.
Hi, Brit? I'm just working on some technical difficulties with my camera.
No, you're totally fine. Not a problem. Before we begin, don't forget to like and subscribe. Follow the MHRT network so you can get notified when shows like the Cluster Puck Podcast go live. You can also follow us on, the various MHRT network platforms that are out there. If you want to follow us specifically, you can follow us at the Cluster Puck Podcast on Facebook, and then Cluster Puck Avs on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads. Okay, so Brit, this has been, I don't even know, from last week. It's been, oh, there she is. It has been just an absolute
Awful
roller coaster of a week. And it just, I think the overall feeling, and I don't know if you can agree to this, but I'll at least speak for myself when I say it just feels like the Avs are struggling to find how they play again, how they play Avalanche hockey. It just seems like it's just not, it's not working. Something's not right.
The identity. It's an identity crisis, it seems.
Yeah, that's exactly what I think it is. So let's kind of do a quick little rundown of how the week went. And then we'll kind of discuss what if there was an overlying problem, what it was, what it can be. So we'll talk about, so we went 1 and 2 on the week. So there were 3 games we talked about: the Jets, the Sharks, and the Blackhawks. The only one we won was the Sharks.
Which,
so the game against the Jets, I think, at least in my opinion, I think what you probably should have done was started Alexander Georgiev.
Completely.
The only reason I say that, and it's nothing against Ivan Prosvetov, he was the hot hand. I can agree, but it's all retrospect, right?
Yeah, it's different. It's not Francouz. The hot hand for Prosvetov is nowhere near the level of the hot hand of Francouz.
Yeah, I would agree. And this game, it just, the team just, it was all a bunch of individuals. And again, we've spoken to this many, many times as far as that Avalanche hockey. It's fast, it's quick, they're passing the puck around, there's all kinds of stuff. But in this one, it was just slow, and they just took the Avs every ounce of effort just to get it out of their own zone.
For all the inconsistency, there's one consistent, and we ended up going to the game in Chicago, and my God, did it stand out in person more. But what's the one consistent thing that seems to be slower than all of the other things when we're frantically trying to win a game? What do you think that one consistent strain is?
Jeez, I don't even know at this point. Lay it on me. What is it?
It's Johansson. We don't have a 2C. We have 2 3Cs. Colton, possibly a 2C at some point, but we essentially have 2 3Cs, a 4C. What I still believe is possibly the best fourth line in the league when we allow O'Connor to be where he belongs, O'Connor, Cogliano, and then, plug whoever. Johansson consistently stands out as he's not fast enough to operate within our system.
Yeah. And it's too bad too, because he had a pretty okay showing the first about 15 or so games of the season, but then recently
he's just kind of moved down. He's moved down within the lineup. He's moved down in minutes. He's been knocked down to the fourth line at times. He's been taken off the power play other than in times that we need. He's still rocking like a 56% face-off average.
Right.
But the game is a lot more than face-offs. At what point do you sacrifice winning a face-off and take a face-off loss and assume that the other guys being on the ice, which we've replaced Duran as Johansson, and we've stuck him in. He's doing great on that bumper spot. But Johansson is just, seems to be an experiment that's not going well, and it's a lot more expensive one than Tatar. A lot. We're paying $4 million. He's still getting he's getting $8 million a year between us and the Preds. So
in Nashville. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think that is one of the few reasons that the Avalanche are just struggling to do anything, is because I don't know if it's like a mental block that someone's going through, but we saw this even last year with the 2C. Kadri, it seems like Kadri was the piece, right?
You
And
have
that's
a
all we've
2C
tried to
that
do was
could be
find
Lindsay.
the copy paste of Kadri. Last year it fell to Comfer and sometimes Newhook, both of which didn't live up to what the expectation was, I should say. And right now it seems like Ryan Johansson has found himself stuck in a rut and just can't get any traction on the wheels.
Right. And we don't have Comfort anymore. And he was the safety blanket. He was Gerard,
exactly.
Bednar's safety blanket. While I've never seen Comfort as like a desperately needed piece, his utility is clearly missed, especially when we don't have the explosive defense that puts out a lot of offense that we're so used to relying on being short. Makar and Gerard, I know that Gerard is the universal whipping boy, but my God, is his presence missed. I did see he's back on the ice today. They said they'll be treating him as an injured player, so he won't be on the ice tonight, but it sounds like he could be on the ice for the next game, which I think he will be appreciated far more than we've seen him appreciated before.
That's kind of what I'm hoping too. And kind of like with what you were addressing, Brit, and for those of you who don't know, Gerard, who entered into the player assistance program for his various personal reasons, is now back with the team. And I think you're exactly right. My hope is that everyone who was starting up those trade Gerard chants and stuff like that, I kind of hope when he comes
defense
back,
that can hardly function without him leading ultimately.
Exactly. I want them to be able to see the difference and really notice, even though, maybe because as a defenseman, points aren't exactly your forte.
But on this team, they kind of are. I mean, that is our defense is a huge part of our offense.
Right. And I want people to see the difference they make. And it's particular in this case, Gerard. I want people to just realize that
and especially when you consider, like I said before, I truly believe that his need to enter into the assistance program stemming from alcohol abuse. I really do believe that it derives from some of the mistreatment from Avs fans. And I hope that after this, we can maybe treat him a little bit better with a little more respect.
I would absolutely agree.
And it all comes down to, regardless, when we started the game, I'm kind of hyper focused on the Blackhawks game because it's so. Losing to the Jets is one thing. They're a good team. But losing to the Blackhawks, I think I heard today that their bottom four has less than 100 cumulative NHL games. They're a team that we should be able to beat without Gerard or Makar. McKinnon, even if you say McKinnon and Bedard cancel each other out, which they don't, McKinnon is the best player in the world right now. He is the best player in the world right now. And Nichushkin, he's one of the top 5 players in the league right now at this point. As far as I'm concerned, it's disgusting the way that he is always there where he's supposed to be. We should be able to beat this Blackhawks team. No questions asked. They are missing Corey Perry. They're missing Taylor Hall, the 2 vets that they brought in to help support. Other than that, this is a team of literally, I couldn't even believe the lack of star power on that team. If Bedard wasn't there, Seth Jones was gone. They were missing Seth Jones. There's no one on that team. It's absolutely insane that we could not score a 5-on-5 goal. Both of our goals come off the power play. Great. Our power play is, scoring goals, but we have to, especially when that usually correlates directly with the playoffs and that you're not going to get nearly as many power plays. You have got to figure out how to score 5-on-5, especially against the worst team in the league.
I would totally agree. And for those of you who don't know, Brit was at the Chicago game, cheering on the Avalanche. There was a spur of the moment decision that you had to,
like midnight the night before we decided.
Like midnight the night before you said, you know what?
Yeah,
heck,
it was
go.
So fun. Something like so minute, but just so weird is that when you go on the ice there, you know how you usually haul ass on the ice and they sprint out. Well, at this rink, you had to go around the bench to get to the ice entrance. So it was like such a buzzkill that they had to like stop, walk around the bench, then
really?
stop on the ice. Yeah. But otherwise, the rink is beautiful. The scoreboard is awesome. So they have like a small scoreboard that goes all the way around inside the big scoreboard. So you're always able to see the scoreboard. It was awesome.
Wow.
The production, everything about it was was super great. It was really an awesome experience. I loved the rink and their team store. I might be a Bulls fan because I wanted to buy everything Bulls that they had. So much good stuff, like all the like 90s type swag. It was a lot of good stuff. I definitely could be a Bulls fan, I think, just so I can buy
Very good. There you go. So Nuggets, hope you're listening. You gotta retain this one, or point this way. You need to retain. You do better. But yeah, so you were at the game. You had that firsthand experience in the Chicago game, speaking of. And I think does it sound the same way as what that Jets game was, where it just felt like nobody was wanting to play the game? Is that kind of what it was?
Yeah, and I mean, I can write off the Jets game ish. I mean, they were kicked out the door. They got their butts kicked. But we had Prosvetov in net. It just feels more write-offable than this Blackhawks loss. I don't care about beating the Sharks. I don't care if we kick the Sharks' butt. You should. You need to. There's no excuse not to, especially when we have such a cush schedule in December. We need to be banking points. And losing to the Blackhawks, this might be the difference in playing home or away in the beginning of the playoffs. And those things matter. So it was maddening to lose that game. Lots of bad choices. I mean, particularly seeing some of the choices that Bo Byram made throughout that game. The Jack Johnson, like guarding absolutely. There was just so many times that I said, how is Connor Bedard out there not being, at what point do you go to mite hockey and just go man on man? I mean, there's no excuse for him to be alone on the ice. And there was so many times that he was alone in front of the net, and it just seemed asinine that he would spend a single second on the ice without somebody within 2 feet of him, or at least trying to be.
Right.
And so just decisions were made that were baffling. It was confusing too. Logan O'Connor was like out on the ice for like the last 2 minutes of the game, it seemed. Ross Colton didn't get a whole lot of minutes, barely would have even known he was out there when he did. It certainly wasn't a great game for him. Are you feeling better, by the way? I forgot to ask you. Are you feeling better?
Yes, I'm feeling good. The
medications,
yeah, they've done their job. It's just now need to work over the
cough.
Work it all out at this point. But yeah,
I don't know if you saw the video. This is super random, but did you see the video of Riker taking a drink out of Mosier's?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. So there's a picture that came out. Riker took a drink out of Mosier's like dip
spitter
cup that his spitter. I would probably just die. Like, I don't know how he did. I can't think. I honestly can't. I'd rather drink car oil. Like basically anything. I would rather go through like the trash can at McDonald's and just drink out of the bottom of that. I just cannot eat. It's so gross.
And his mistake was that Mosier's spitter was in a coffee cup, just similar to Riker's coffee cup, right? So they look the exact same, and he happens to grab the wrong one, thinking he was going to take a sip of, I guess it was his coffee or water or whatever was in there, but they were the exact same coffee cup.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you just see him look down at the drink, like smell it quickly, like try to flush it out, spit into another cup. Like he tried. Yeah.
That's nightmare stuff. Like that's like
disgusting
torture. Even if it's your own spit cup, but somebody else's. And Mosier is just totally straight faced through the whole thing. I couldn't. I think I would keep seeing somebody else do it.
The show has to keep going, you know what I mean? But that's the thing, is it's content like that. I love the behind the scenes watching Riker and Moj
they're
together.
So good. The fact that they released that
shamelessly, that kind of stuff.
So good.
Especially because there was another one where it was the game against the Sharks, which we'll talk about in a second. Not much to tell, especially when you're sandwiched between two really embarrassing losses. But it was the Future Generations night where they had kids come in and join in the booth and in the studio and all this kind of stuff. And there was one where they had a behind the scenes of Riker and Moj with this little kid that they brought in for the night. And I can't remember who it was that scored a goal. It might have been Johansson. But you just see them throw their arms up and stuff like that. So it's like, they celebrate when they do it. It's not just like they're sitting all stoic.
We're so lucky. Yeah, having them is such it's honestly such like a thing that we take for granted because our broadcast
Yeah.
team is so amazing. I went down and I got a goof around with Mosher and he took a picture with us, and like they're honestly some of the funniest dudes in all. I can't think of like anybody short of like Charles Barkley. Like who has better personality than our broadcast team?
I don't know. I feel like we're right up there. I really
Yeah.
do. I think we have a
Yeah.
really good broadcast team. But that aside, there was one more game that did happen, and that was a win 6-2 against the Sharks. And again, this
Mhm.
was one that was expected to win, but then again, so was the Blackhawks, right? But
Hey.
it just felt like that game, it was like this is what you should be doing, but it just felt empty. I don't know how to describe it. It was like, yeah, we won, but it just felt just more pedestrian than anything. Like there was still no
Right.
give. Like the goals were coming and stuff like that, but it was just kind of like there was no soul to the game. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
No, we saw McKinnon continue his streak into 15 games straight. And it just doesn't feel that exciting because we've gotten to a point where we can't trust that this is some kind of turnaround point for the
Yeah.
Avs because
Yep.
we don't know that they're going to go out and shit the bed literally to the Blackhawks a couple days later.
Exactly.
So I
And
would imagine, and if we don't, I think that people are going to start like at least putting their hand over the panic button for sure. We know that a move is coming, be it on defense, offense. We know something's coming.
mhm.
Like I said on Twitter, give me Crosby or give me death because the Penguins are not doing so good. But I just so especially if we don't win, something's got to change. Regardless,
Yeah.
something has to change. We saw, and I don't know if you want to get into it right away, but like Devon Toews did come out with some very
Yes. Yep. We'll actually go right into that. So past games aside, even if people like me could take notice of what's going on in the Avalanche, people that play for the Avalanche would definitely take notice, and we'll get into that right now. So after the Blackhawks game, Devon Toews was interviewed about how the recent set of games were going, how this game went, stuff like that. And to quote him as best as I can remember, I should say, he says, "We have a lot of guys who think they are playing great out there,
yeah. I
but they're
pulled it up
kidding
here,
themselves."
and the recurring theme in this was self-awareness.
Yes.
And I thought that was important. Like I thought that was something that was intentional. You know that this is something that they're talking about in the locker room, and he discussed self-awareness multiple times.
Hmm.
Um, I think we have a lot of guys out there who think they're playing well, and I think they're kidding themselves at this point. The unknowns that other players that he can't trust where his players are going to be, and that this league is too hard to not know where your teammates are going to be. Really, really frustrated, and he's not a drama guy. So this is huge coming from him.
Hmm. And the thing is, he's right. There's
Yeah.
in no way is he over here, and everyone, the media as a whole wants to take it and say, "Oh, he's throwing his teammates under the bus and blah blah blah." No, he's holding people accountable. You see it happen all the time in sports, right? It's
Mhm.
frustrating to lose games like, and especially in that kind of fashion against the Blackhawks, where it's like you should have blown them out 7-1, right?
Yeah.
And so
Well, we're just
he's
such a low
expressing,
drama team. This is the most people have talked about the Avs in years. There might be
yeah.
more people talking about this than when we won the Stanley Cup.
It's true. But the thing is, like I said before, there is no wrong statement where he's like, yeah, there are guys on the ice, and he never said not including himself, right? I'm guessing he's including himself, where he said they think they're playing well. They think they're doing everything's fine, and the points are going to
Right.
come, and they just need to ride the course as it is, and everything will come up aces. No, the reason the Avalanche won the Stanley Cup that year in that playoff was the effort they put on the ice for 60 minutes every single game.
Well, and the buy-in, you have to buy into a system. It's not
Exactly.
there's no making your own choices. Everybody has to be on the same page all the time.
Mm-hmm. And part of the reason why they win games is because of they start out strong, maybe score a couple goals in the first period, but they continue to ride that wave through the end of the game, right? Regardless of if the other team comes back or not, they take the momentum back.
Yeah.
And they basically try to keep it on cap, right? And that's kind of what Devon Toews is saying. He's like, when he says, I think they're kidding themselves, meaning it's time to wake up, right? You need to kind of get up and
suggesting
smell
that they don't even realize that they're doing wrong. And maybe some of these guys are so used to playing on failing teams that they don't understand the true buy-in of it all.
Yeah. So hopefully this is like a big wake-up call for the Avalanche for their game here in about 40 minutes.
Yeah. I'd like to see him go out and score a goal, because you know what? He is among those players that's not really playing that well, but maybe he's suggesting that it's because he can't trust his teammates to be or play how they're expected to.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's like Devon Toews, he's not a high maintenance dude. He doesn't cause drama, right? But when he's frustrated, right? You'll see it all the time with guys who
was not upset with him making these statements. So clearly this is something being discussed within the locker room often. It's nothing new to them. It's just coming out to us. And we can let this be, and we've already talked about a couple pivoting points within our season. This is the time where you need to truly turn it around, because we're about halfway through and the season starts slipping away really quick. And when you think about it, Nick, when was the last time, what cup contending teams have we beat this year?
The only one as far as a contender.
Yeah, and I don't have the answer for that, but when you think about that LA game, that was such a big game, and we did not perform in that game.
Yeah.
We've played a lot of games within our division, and our division is not very good. And
I'd
for the rest
of the Lightning right around Thanksgiving time was one.
Yeah, but I mean, even them, they're squandering right now too.
They're just squabbling just like us. No, you raise a good point though. Everyone else, it's like they're a playoff contending team, but not cup.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we're gonna start facing the Bruins, the Leafs. We've got to start beating teams that matter. And right now we can't even beat teams that don't matter. These should be banked points for us, and we're not.
Yeah, I totally agree. So kind of there was a question posed to me about goalie play. We'll touch on that one right now. So how much of this roller coaster, this up and down, there's you can't get a winning streak, but you can't get a losing streak. It's how much of that has fallen or should fall onto a goalie's head, speaking of both Georgiev and Prosvetov, because they've both had about equal playing time in the last couple of weeks.
It's hard to say. The thing was, the cup winning team, we had Kadri, who essentially could be a first line center. As we can see, he does need to be led, though, with his failure in Colorado. Should at this point, we need to find a way to just trade Johansson and get Calgary to send us Kadri and Lindholm. I don't know. But at this point, it's almost like, could we just get Kadri back? Because I don't know. We have a good goalie in Georgiev. And I kind of heard a discussion on this on the podcast, and it pretty much summed up how I felt that the top three goalies are the top three goalies. You pretty much have Shesterkin, Soros, and Vasilevsky, which it's weird that they're all Russian. But after that, it's just kind of who's sexy at the moment. And we are failing Georgie with our defensive play. We proved with our playoff run and our Stanley Cup win that we could win with a standard goalie, plug in most good goalies, but we are a team that is going to need a goalie that can save all the saves that they should save and some of the goals that they shouldn't. It's been a while since he stole a game for us. I really don't think, especially in that Blackhawks game, you just can't, maybe one of them, that second goal, but you just can't blame him for those. But also, just because you can't blame him for them doesn't mean that they don't need to stop one of those once in a while. You got to win this game occasionally. But I just don't think it all falls on. Once one thing comes together, it brings all things together for the most part. I have a ton of faith in Georgie. I still do, and I always will, because we've seen that he has this capability to be an elite goaltender and steal games and make huge. He had some huge saves in that game, but he's feeling, clearly there's some stuff going on in the locker room, and I'd say that his feeling that probably comes through on the ice also.
Yeah,
especially when you're supposed to be playing for the best defense in the league, and they're just not right now.
Yeah.
Not even close to it.
Georgiev, he's the kind of guy, at least that we've noticed in the last year and a half now, that he puts a lot of pressure on himself. Right. When really you need to kind of put your head up and look around. There are 5 other guys skating on the ice in front of you, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of times in these, especially on these goals, like in the Winnipeg game for Prosvetov's case, it just seems like they just, I don't want to say let him out to dry, but they didn't do him any favors by helping. I don't know if that makes any sense. But just like they just were kind of meandering around the net, not trying to, they weren't trying to force the puck away from the crease or anything. They were just kind of like standing there watching to see what happened.
With him prior to that game, because the night before they saved him several times, and they certainly didn't. He did not get that level, and it showed in the score a lot. Yeah. I definitely, while we saw Kemper and Francouz as a successful tandem, we were able to lean on Francouz when Kemper was struggling or hurt or injured. And this year, it just kind of swayed a little bit that we have what hopefully is a better goalie and a healthier goalie, and that we have to utilize our backup less. But we have to actually get there. I mean, that's the idea, but we do have to actually get there.
Yep. And again, with this whole last couple of weeks, the roller coaster, it happens to everyone, right? I mean, you see, you just see it all the time, but it's just frustrating because you know exactly what you should be doing. You know, like we won what 8 out of our first 10 games or something like that. I can't remember exactly, but we were riding super high to a point where, Britt, all you and I had to do was talk about the highlights, right? That was really it. Instead of having to go in and nitpick everything. But again, that's...
But the thing is, even in those wins, you had Bednar still saying that things aren't quite where they need to be.
Right.
And we saw the first move. So we've hit the freeze. So we're not doing anything until after Christmas. But us, along with everyone else, it's not like... and everybody wants to think Lindholm, but like, honestly, when have the Avs ever done what anyone expected them to do? So that makes me believe that because we think it's Lindholm, it's definitely not Lindholm.
It's going to be Braden Point.
I know. I'm really watching like Ryan O'Reilly come back. I don't know. I'm excited to see what we pull out of our ass, because you know that we're going to do something.
That Tatar trade was not for nothing.
No. And
there is a purpose to it.
Every single dollar matters right now. And I don't like excuses, but there are some things to take into consideration. The refs really, that game was very poorly refed. We got a very big freebie, but it certainly was slanted towards the Hawks. But I will say it again, we still should be able to beat the Blackhawks. Short, Cale Makar, Gerard, Lehkonen,
regardless of the refereeing.
But still, we should be able to score, especially the way McKinnon's been scoring. It was baffling. Mikko missed a wide open net, wide open, sailed it past the net with essentially no pressure. And that's just a game that you can't do that. But also, other than the refs, we do have to consider it's really easy to forget that we're missing Lehkonen and that we've displaced our first line. Is essentially we've had to move all of our power to the first line. And while that first line is disgusting, we have to have something for the second line. We are doing pretty well in minutes wise for the first line. It's not nearly as bad as it was last year, but we saw Devon Toews, for as poor as he's been playing off and on, he's also playing literally half the game in a lot of games. And that's just not sustainable, especially when you consider he's not a young buck. We're
Yeah.
seeing way too much Jack Johnson. I didn't even look at the minutes, but way too much McDermott on the ice. The second we get back Lehkonen and Gerard, it changes the whole entire
It's a whole
everything
different
shifts.
team.
Yeah.
It seems like it's a whole different dynamic, and we talked about this, for last season where
Yeah.
Nichushkin, when he was missing, you could feel it, and then when he came back, he wasn't himself, and you could tell. So, thank goodness he is now kind of one of those Mount Rushmore of the season where, it's him, Makar, McKinnon, and Rantanen that you can rely on getting goals.
And we
Right?
do
And
have
it's
the
a breath
depth
of fresh
this year
air.
that we did not have last year, but we've got to get everybody on the same page because our depth is actual NHL player depth. Caleb Jones, not a great game on him. Like he's
Yeah.
okay, not great. Malinsky, I think that kid's headed places. He has really,
Mhm.
really found himself a lot of success. And when you consider his first few NHL games, he has really found success. I think that he's just short of making himself a mainstay over a Caleb Jones or essentially anyone that we might call up here pretty soon.
Sure. Yeah, I agree, and, um, it's amazing to just to see the call-ups that everyone kind of would just like, "Yeah, it's there to fill." It was a problem last year, but this year just seems like those call-ups are actually putting in a good effort, right? And
It's our
yeah, like
second
Like
line.
Caleb Jones, like you said, they'll all produce stinkers. In fact, all of them will.
But we're seeing Drouin find his place. And at this
But we're
point, we
seeing
just desperately need a true 2C, and we need to put some of our power back down on that second line and just level things out. It's like all the pieces are there except for one. And then you
Mhm.
have a couple injuries and everything is misplaced because of those. So once we fill that missing piece and get those spots back so that we can put people where they belong, it feels like this should come together. We can't let this be a missed year. I think that this is the year that
Mhm.
you sell the whole farm. This year is so
Yeah.
much different than last year.
I completely agree because this team, it felt very exciting at the very beginning of
That
the season where you were just like, "Oh my gosh, we are so deep." Like,
yeah,
and like I said, through the first 10 or so games, you're like, "Yeah, we're gonna be going places. We're heading back to the Stanley Cup." Like
yeah.
it almost felt like we could do no wrong. But again, there's just these mental blocks that everyone seems to have and to a point
It
where
had
now you
a
have
fraud.
Devon Toews chiming in to basically say we're kidding ourselves. We thought everything was fine because of how we were playing. The problem is we're no longer playing that way, but we still think we are. And
And I
that's
think in
where
the
the
end that
problem's
this
been.
will be a good thing. This is a wake-up call.
Yeah.
Devon Toews is something he is a person that is widely respected throughout the NHL. He's just got those don't disappoint dad vibes, and that's got
Yeah.
to really make the guys feel a different way. It's different to be barked at by Bednar, any of the coaches, even like McKinnon, that it kind of runs dry when you've got the same guy. But I don't think that Devon Toews is someone that comes out very often as so truly disgusted is what
Yeah.
you felt disgust.
Yeah. You absolutely did. And again, what my hope is him putting that comment out there. The media is going to do their thing, assuming every kind of, end of the world scenario. But really, I think he's trying to do it as a call out to his
Well, he
teammates
didn't
and
name
even
names.
including
So
himself.
yeah,
Yeah,
he
he
knows
didn't name names,
all
you
of the
know?
media, all of us, we're all speculating. Who is it? Who is it? But
Who are you
that there's
talking
a
about?
sector of that locker room
Yeah.
that knows exactly who he's talking about, and they probably feel pretty shitty because Devon Toews knows what it takes. I mean, he is a certified winner. He knows what it
Yeah.
takes, and they know that he's not wrong. So if he finally told some people about themselves in a way that they can truly believe it, then this would be considered a success. And it's worth the bit
Yeah.
of drama for a team who's largely free of all drama. I mean, that's always been one of the strengths of this team is this healthy, non-toxic locker room. And you just really got to start wondering if there's a reason that they bought Johansson out. As pleasant as he seems, he might be a little clueless, a little something. I don't know, but they bought him out, man. He was their
Yeah.
golden boy. He was their savior, and they bought him out. So if he is the cancer, or whether on ice, off the ice, I don't know, but it might be time to really, really consider fixing that sooner than later. I'd be curious to know if we're going to do it before the deadline or at deadline.
Yeah, it's totally possible. I mean, there's merit to what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Really quick before we get into the weekly look ahead, there is one little tidbit I wanna pick your brain about. So there was a chart, an NHL chart posted. I can't remember the source, but it was on Twitter that I saw this about each team's top 3 hated other teams.
Yeah, I saw
right?
that. I didn't get a chance.
And the one that stood out to me, well, there's 2 that stood out to me, is that the Colorado Avalanche, their number 1 team that Avalanche Nation hates is the St. Louis Blues. And the St. Louis Blues Nation, the number 1 team they hate, are the Colorado Avalanche. That's nice, right? That makes me feel good because my brother and I always have this heated, we're butting heads constantly because he's a Blues fan and I'm an Avalanche fan. So I'm like, good. I feel like it's good to have that type of rivalry.
Yeah.
The other one, though, that I was very much confused about is that nowhere on the Avalanche top 3 will you find a one Seattle Kraken organization.
Really?
Meanwhile, the Seattle Kraken, their team, the most hated other team they have is the Colorado Avalanche. My guess is that it stems from the Cale Makar hit against Jared McCann last year in the playoffs.
Which was,
but at the same time, it's like, guys,
killed Cogliano multiple times.
It's like, guys, like, I get you're looking for someone. You're new to the league, right? You want to find a rival.
To establish some chips,
but it needs to establish. It can't just be like if this one thing happened last season.
Fabricating it. But I mean, were there only playoff? I don't know. See, in the Kraken, it's hard to maintain a rivalry when one is so irrelevant. And to me, the Kraken are irrelevant, particularly this year. You can see how fake and hollow it was last year. I consider our playoff loss more beating ourselves than them actually beating us. That's why it's like almost like they're not even really a part of that playoff loss to me. It's just that we just lost to ourselves and they just happen to be the other team on the ice for those 7 games. Because the fact that we almost beat them, when you consider how that year
stuff we were going through,
it just is insane. It's kind of pathetic that they can be so proud of it. Like, and when people are like, they beat the returning Stanley Cup champions, it's like, I don't know if I would call this team that, but whatever,
Yeah, but again, it's like you look at the Kraken, it's like, yeah, we don't like the Avalanche. At least that's that's the report. But there was a
yelling at a tree. Like I just don't consider them worth the effort.
Well, that's the thing. It's like I don't consider the Kraken our rival by any stretch of the imagination. Yeah, there was some bad blood for a couple games, but we moved on. But Seattle, I guess, clearly has not. And the meme that I saw was the one from Endgame, where the meme was like, with the Kraken, you took everything from me. And then the other one is Thanos, but with the Avalanche sticker pasted on him. And he just goes, I don't even know who you are.
It's exactly.
I'm like, that's kind of it. Where it's like, you guys want to create a rivalry. And we're over here just like, we got places to be. Is this going to take a while?
As far as I'm concerned, I consider Vegas like our ultimate rival because I feel like our waxing and wane of success is going to kind of follow each other here for a while. We've kind of been up and down at the same time. I think the Blues will be a rival until
Blues, I would agree with
for good, but it's hard to maintain a rival when one team is so irrelevant. And that's kind of why the Detroit rival hasn't been able to stay, is like, you guys like suck too bad to really feel a whole lot. And the Blues I can't tell like what they're doing exactly. I'll be curious to see if they do end up trying to offload Binnington. That's a contract that just started this year, I believe, like $6 million for 5 years, something like that. I think I'm wrong on that.
Yep.
It's pretty much like Jordan Binnington and the Knights are our biggest rivals at this point. I just don't because now that Ryan O'Reilly's gone, it just like a lot of those feelings. And Dallas. I mean, I just consider Dallas as kind of one of our what's the term? Like our kryptonite-ish.
Yeah. Or playing in Chicago, for example. That seemed to be kryptonite, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's weird how like we kind of pick really shitty teams to be our most lively games. Chicago
Yep.
and then Arizona has been just the thorn in our heel for years. It's insane.
It just doesn't make sense.
The
Um,
Arizona Coyotes NHL 2023 playoff team, might I add. They're not a bad team anymore. That's the thing about this year, though, is no one except the Sharks is really intentionally tanking at this point. I don't think that anybody intended to be as bad as they are, especially Ottawa, which, my God, what is going on in Ottawa? I don't understand how it's so bad there, but there's really no gimme games. And that's why a team lacking consistency, this is not a good year to lack consistency when you can't
yeah.
beat teams with your eyes closed like you
Yeah.
last year.
And speaking of Arizona and Ottawa, I guess we'll take that to segue right into our next segment. We're gonna try to cut the podcast a little bit short for game time and stuff like that. So we'll just probably do this last note. But there are games to be played still. Even though you might be struggling, the season will still continue, right? And there's always time to pick it back up and
That's, if I remember correctly, did we not lose an abysmal game to the Hawks like right before Christmas last year? I think it was
last
right
year.
after Kemper broke his hand, or is that the game that he broke his hand? Something like
I
that.
can't remember, but it was one where it was like you were starting this downward trend and it
was a
accumulated with the
bleak.
loss to the Blackhawks. So that's almost copy paste
Yeah.
to last season. But we do have 3 games in the next week. We have one tonight against the Senators, which you just spoke of. And then, believe it or not, those Wile E. Coyotes, we get to play them twice.
The schedule's so bad. It's so bad.
Scheduling is so odd, right? So let's talk about the one tonight, the one that's going to be happening here in about 20 minutes or so. The Senators are a team right now that are spiraling. Like, and I don't want to say out of control, but they're a productive team that knows how to find a way to lose. I don't know how to
score a lot of goals and then just go to bed. It's so weird.
Exactly.
So weird.
Now, if there is ever a time to right the ship, I should say, it's tonight, right?
For us and them, but geez,
right.
They didn't get their
I'd
new
rather
coach
us than them. They can wait one more game. Come on now.
But they're supposed to be riding a new coach bump, and they just blew a gigantor lead the other night. So who knows? We have 2 teams looking to right the ship, and neither one of us wants to be the other team's get right game.
Exactly, right? And so that's what I'm hoping becomes the motivator for this game is, you don't want to be the reason they're all of a sudden on an uptick.
Yeah.
Right?
Because they're a talented team. They have a very
they have
they need goaltending.
Yeah, they got the goaltending, they got the players for it, even though it's like, yeah, you can only maybe think of 3. That's kind of their disguise that they use, where they use like Claude Giroux, Batherson, Norris, about those 3 guys or so, Chychrun, and the rest can just kind of score at will, and they're still off the radar. That's what worries me, is that they have so many that can do it.
Well, Tkachuk, I mean, you'd think that Tkachuk could will win himself.
And Tkachuk, yeah, exactly. Like I was one. That's probably the biggest name that I just missed. But at the same time,
I mean, when you go through their roster, they've got Anton Forsberg as a goalie, which not a bad goalie. Giroux, Chychrun, Tarasenko, Brandstrom. Is Shane Pinto back yet?
I don't know. I didn't hear anything about him returning, but he could be. I don't know.
Korpisalo, who's also not a bad goalie. They've got Jake Sanderson. They just signed him to a bajillion-year contract. Kubalik, Tkachuk, Norris, Stützle, Batherson. There's just no reason that this team they could turn it on.
They have names. They have the firepower. Like that's. But again, because of this spiral, this is the time to take advantage of it, where they are finding ways to lose.
Yeah.
And at this point, it would be really great if the Avalanche could find a way to win,
We have got to score goals, and
it has to. My thing would be first period goals. I'm going to say for this particular set of games, first period goals.
Is Georgia playing tonight? Do you know?
I hope he is. I
Because
don't know
this
for
would be a
sure.
game to steal. I mean, when you look, they scored 6 goals, 3 goals, 4 goals, 5 goals, 3 goals, 4 goals. I mean, they're scoring a lot of
Yeah,
goals.
they know how. They definitely know
So if
how.
we could keep them limited on the goals, I wouldn't be surprised if they're one of the highest goal scoring teams in the league.
Yeah, I would totally agree. Is he starting? Yes, Georgiev and Korpisalo will be facing off against each other. So, um, but again, this is one where you need to come out of the gates with all the energy in the world and keep it throughout the entire game. I don't want this to be one where it's like we have a 3-goal lead into the third period and then just gets squandered away. This one is like you have to start strong and finish strong, like no ifs, ands, or buts. So that game is on here in about a few minutes, like we said. So then the last one, we play the Coyotes twice, first right before Christmas on Saturday, and then right after Christmas on Wednesday, right? So there's going to be a large break between the two games, but they're the same team nonetheless. And this team, for some reason, we just cannot catch a break against. It's always overtime plus with these guys, and sometimes it sways our way, sometimes it doesn't. With
And I
this
think
one,
that's just kind of their style. So
with
we need to adjust.
exactly, and that's what they have is like they use that same type of ability, I should say, to just have anyone score goals because they block, they blind, they screen, they do all these things to get pucks into the net, and they have a great amount of puck luck that I don't
Then they find a way
think
to
is going
lose.
away anytime soon.
But you have to capitalize on a team that's willing to lose.
Yeah.
And that's where they need to take this game away from them because it will be given to them eventually.
I would hope so. I totally would. But with a superior goaltending right now with Connor Ingram, that's another thing that you have to figure out how to get past it. Because
He's on my fantasy team. When I
and
saw
for
that
good
they
reason.
were putting him
He's
in
a
as
really good goaltender, and to a point where guess what? They are in the last playoff spot as we sit right now.
Did he not have a 50 shot save game against the Avs 2 years ago?
Yeah, and in the game 1 or 2 of the playoffs, it took everything we could to throw at him to crack him. And finally, we got the overtime winner. I think 2-1 was the score.
Yeah.
But my gosh, it took and we were clearly the dominant team in that game. But Connor Ingram was just a brick wall. So he is more than capable of having those types of games. And it seems like the Avalanche are the team that everyone loves to just all of a sudden have record-shattering games against.
Oh my God.
You know?
These middling goalies just eat us alive. It's insane.
Yep, they do. So, again, it's a divisional game, so a 4-point swing between the teams, and you're having this twice. So this is essentially 8 points.
Yeah, and we have not done well so far on that. We have got to take advantage of these.
We do.
I think we're down to third in the conference.
Yeah, we're technically tied with 40 points with Dallas, and Winnipeg's got 41. So we're not like down and out. Like again, we make it sound like all of a sudden it's the end of the world. I promise it's not. We're still.
We've also had a very easy schedule. It's not getting easier.
Exactly. It should be basically like freebie points.
Yeah,
if you think about it.
As it comes this year, and it's just really not getting easier at all. And it is kind of nice that we'll get to ramp up and hopefully, do our peak. You don't want to peak too early, which whatever the hell that means. Like if you peak and stay peaked, then that's just called being a really good hockey team. But if we can start our ascension, this could be ideal timing, but we got to figure shit out. And I won't believe it until I've seen a solid 10 games because we've won most of our 10 game stretches, but we have seen some dark little glimpses in all of them. We have not since the start of the year where we were on cloud 9. We have not seen. We have got to kick some butt the next few games. We need to beat the crap out of the Senators. We need to beat the crap out of Arizona. We need to make a point because we're kind of a laughing stock right now. People know we're good, but I think people really like the idea that we're crumbling. They like it because they don't want to talk about us. We're not.
They want to write us off. That's the whole thing, is they look forward to us struggling, because if they catch us at a struggling time,
right? Because the
it's easier
Bruins,
for them.
Toronto, all of these teams that have struggled the last few years for various reasons, they know that if the Avs are playing like the Avs, that they probably don't have a chance. So they need to see us shoot ourselves in the foot. So we've got to figure it out, make a statement, make teams scared to play us in the playoffs again. We don't want to be the team that you want to play, or as opposed to like the team that you dread.
Yep. I 100% agree with that statement. 100%.
Yeah, we need to kick the crap out of the Senators.
It needs to be full 60 minutes right out of the gate. Again, like I said, if you get at least 2 goals, I would say, if you could get 2 goals in the first period and continue that momentum for any game for the rest of the season, your chances of winning are increased significantly.
And that's with these middle end goalies. You got to go out there, break their confidence. Don't give them a couple periods to get feeling sexy, because once you're going, you're rolling. We need to get out there. We need to break their confidence immediately. And that's really kind of the name of the game with these middle end goalies.
Yep, that's 100%. Okay, well, I think that's going to go ahead and take us all the way up to game time here in about 10 minutes or so. So once again, everyone, thank you for following and participating along in today's episode. Again, let's hope for 3 wins for this next week.
And this is one from Graham, but yes, I'm so happy.
Oh, there you go. But thank you once again, everyone, for following along with the Clusterpuck Podcast, part of the MHRT network. If you do like what you see, again, we ask that you follow, like, subscribe to the MHRT network so you can get notified when shows like the Clusterpuck Podcast go live. You can also follow us on our individual page, which is at Clusterpuck Avs on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads, and then the Clusterpuck Podcast on Facebook. With that being said, we hope you guys have a wonderful Christmas, a happy holidays. Hopefully you guys get everything that you wrote to Santa for. And as always, I'm going to say with a ho, 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 I'm going to say peace out and go Avs go.
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Simcoe's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast's racking up the flight miles. So high, I might never come down, so what, this is my lifestyle. Wait a minute.